College football playoff continues. We're down to the Final Four. SEC is in danger of potentially missing the national championship game for the third straight year for a conference that likes to stick out their chest. They haven't had a team play for a trophy now, and unless Ole Miss can continue this run, which is really cool, by the way. I think it's awesome these kids have come together and have been able to achieve such great things after their coach bailed on them. So if Ole Miss can't get it done, then we are looking at a scenario where the SEC will be shut out. So we'll get these games going coming up next week. So Thursday, the 8th, it's Miami Ole Miss. Then on Friday, it's Oregon, Indiana. For all the Big 12 homers out there, the Big 12 apologists, Texas Tech got blanked by Oregon. And Indiana just embarrassed Alabama. Some really surprising results and some fun watches over the past couple of days. So get to the latest in the world of college football. Your NFL weekend actually will start tomorrow. So we'll get to some NFL storylines on the show today. A couple of playoff spots still up for grabs, seedings and such. A lot of things already decided, but it's the final weekend of the regular season in the NFL. Panthers, Bucks tomorrow, Seahawks, Niners tomorrow, and then a bevy of great Sunday games that will culminate with a Sunday night game, which is Baltimore and Pittsburgh. And that obviously is a must-win for the Steelers. So no Monday night game this week, but you do get a couple of Saturday tilts. The Utah Jazz played without Keontae George and Lauri Markkanen last night. Kawhi dropped 45 on the Jazz, and the Jazz got by the Clips. Some interesting conversations going around about the Jazz right now. Zach Lowe, on his podcast today, talked about the fact that he thinks the Jazz are now moving forward with Lauri Markkanen as part of the plan. 2 straight L's for the Jazz after a couple of wins, and right now 12-21. So they're going to be at Golden State coming up on Saturday. That's when the Jazz are back in action. RSL made a move while we were away. Brian Ojeda has been sent to Orlando for, I don't know what the hell is it, GAM, TAM. It's some sort of allocation that you can then use on talent. It's a dumb league. I don't fully get it, but they traded away one of their best defensive midfielders in exchange for, I believe it's GAM. GAM, general allocation money for you newbies out there. So there you go. All right, good guest list. We'll start things off with Chris Camerani, our college football insider from The Athletic, live in studio for an hour. Excited to catch up with Guy Holliday today. Guy coached on both staffs, both BYU and Utah, and he's been very vocal on social media about all of the storylines surrounding Witt taking off to Michigan, and then a bunch of local assistant coaches following in his footsteps. So we'll bring in Guy today. Roxy Bernstein, our buddy from ESPN, who does college football, does hockey as well, does everything, quite frankly. But Roxy, our old friend from the Pac-12, will stop by. And then Dave Fleming. So really, really good guest list on the program today. Dave Fleming, of course, play-by-play voice on ESPN. So Chris Camerani, Guy Holliday, Roxy Bernstein, and Dave Fleming. With that guest list, you would expect we're going to be talking mostly college football today, and you would expect right. Me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, Happy New Year to you. And Happy New Year to you, young man. Porter Larson, how are you?
Back at you. Of course, as you'd expect from me, GAM. We're talking about GAM today on the show, right?
You're a big GAM guy. You like the GAM.
General allocation money.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You buy down salaries, and then it frees up money against the cap.
Yes, it does. So you've done some research in the last 15 seconds on Google on this.
Oh, no. I'm an expert in the TAM, the GAM,
Hey, what's the difference between GAM and TAM?
I don't know.
Yeah, no one knows. It's like that Nate Bargatze, George Washington. We'll use Fahrenheit. And how do you spell it? Nobody knows, or impossible. Yeah, it's a dumb league, and Ojeda's gone. But look, let's get to opening tip. Before we do that, the last segment we did on Tuesday night, I asked you point blank, when we're back on air Friday, will we have a bunch of news that has broken regarding the storyline? I'm not saying I'm Nostradamus. It was pretty easy to see, but Witt came and took the house. He took the kids. He took the car. He took the frequent flyer miles, and he took the Airbnb. Like, he got whoever he wanted.
And, of course, with the transfer portal opening today, we're going to see a little bit more of this. But, yeah, it's just the reality of college football. And in this market, and I want to be clear here. I still think it's kind of the loud minority. But in this market, there's a lot of people who have not experienced like the real world of college football. They've been sheltered from it because of what Utah has been for the last 20 years, and they are not reacting well. Locals are restless in that regard. But hey, it's a fan. It's a fanatic for a reason. I think that we'll dig into a lot of that, and of course the fallout still to come, and of course a Las Vegas Bowl. It was a success in Morgan Scalley's debut. I think still plenty to be stoked and excited about if you're a Utah fan. But yeah, probably a tough 24 hours or so for those guys.
Yeah, and now it's Morgan's time. And the pressure on whoever was part of the process that led Witt to Ann Arbor is now even bigger and brighter than it was just a week ago. So Chris Camerani, our first guest today. But before we catch up with CK, courtesy of our good friends at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip. New year, new you. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend and elite hoop action almost every night, the action never stops, and Prize Picks lets you take control. New feature alert, Prize Picks now has early payouts. So if your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. And you can find your community on Prize Picks with the new social feeds feature. You can share Prize Picks with your friends, copy lineups from winners with a single click, copy lineups that you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tail or fade our picks with just one click. Bottom line is download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700. You get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Porter, are you familiar with the Martin Scorsese film Goodfellas?
Yes.
By my estimation, maybe the best gangster movie of all time.
Ooh, hot take.
Certainly on the list, if that's a hot take. But you remember the scene in which Martin Scorsese brilliantly used the piano outro to the song Layla, Derek and the Dominoes, Clapton's band.
Great song.
The piano outro, which of course was the aftermath of the Lufthansa heist, where all of these gangsters executed a massive heist to the tune of, I don't know, millions of dollars. They were able to get a lot of money.
Yeah, familiar.
And in the piano exit scene where you're hearing Layla in the background, what Scorsese did, which was brilliant film work, is show all the deaths that were linked in this montage. And they were, of course, basically called by De Niro's character, Jimmy Conway, who wanted to eliminate anyone who could link him to the robbery and also just make more money, period. So as this, and it might be my favorite scene in film of all time, as you're hearing this brilliantly selected music play, you see the bodies and everyone's kind of just scanning, and you see Stack Edwards, you see Maury Kessler, the dude with the weird hair, Johnny Roast Beef and his wife. Remember, he bought the fur jacket that De Niro was mad about. Joe Buddha was also found dead. And as the music is playing, they just reveal all of these names. And so as I'm sitting there on my phone, after, the Utah bowl game was behind us, and suddenly, the names start spilling in. And this is morbid because they're not dead, but the names start spilling in, where it's Jason Beck, then it's Jim Harding, then it's Micah Simon, then it's Coy Detmer Jr., then it's Freddie Whittingham, and of course it's Lewis Powell, and then it's Jay Hill. And I just sat back, and it's like that scene where you see everyone who is actually leaving Utah's coaching roster, and of course Jay Hill leaving BYU to join Witt in Ann Arbor. So I apologize for the morbid parallel on the show today. But look, you cannot be surprised by this. As we talked about right after the news went down, and I was asked to, do some work over at KUTV now, and asked by our buddy Adam Mikulich, who follows Witt to Ann Arbor. And I said, whoever Witt wants is going to follow him to Ann Arbor. So that essentially is what happened. Kyle's going to retain the running backs coach at Michigan, so Marky Atuwai will stay here. And Morgan Scalley now has a staff to entirely rebuild, like from the ground up. And this stings. This hurts. And I know it is something that a lot of people around here are upset about as far as, what Witt's legacy is in this market. Witt's legacy is cemented. There's nothing that he could or would do to change the 21 years that he coached this team at such a very high level, conference championships, Rose Bowls, undefeated seasons, BCS busters. Building Utah football up to be one of the preeminent programs in the Western United States is something that you will never be able to take away from Kyle. Do I understand the outrage? Yeah, I do. And I feel bad for Morgan. But let me pause and say I'm very confident in Morgan as well. We saw the coaching debut of the Vegas Bowl. And look, I couldn't help but pause for a moment as the teams were about to take the field. And standing in front of his team was Morgan with his hands on his hips. And if you noticed, he started to look around a little bit, and I just thought it was so damn cool. I think it probably hit him right there, like, okay, it's my turn. I've been waiting for years, and now this is my team. This is my program. He kind of looked up into the stands, and he was standing there, ready to run out. And then, of course, the team takes the field. And after a little bit of an auspicious start, and quite frankly, a run defense that probably needs some tinkering and some additions, the offense was awesome. Devin was great. Jason called a great game. And Utah wins 11 games for the fourth time in school history. So really, one of the things I wanted to talk about today is lost in the chaos and lost in the storylines of Kyle not just taking the Michigan job, but raiding the cupboards and getting anyone who he wanted at Utah, is that Utah football just had a damn fine season, like a really, really good year. 11 wins. It's only happened 4 times. Right on the outside of the CFP, really in the mix to win your conference championship. But yes, the storyline today and the storyline over the past 72 hours is the chaos that has ensued with Kyle coming back and taking anyone he wanted. And Kyle himself went on College game day wearing a Michigan hat, which is still a pretty stunning visual, to corroborate the reports out there about Jay Hill. The interesting thing about Jay is I've heard a lot of people in the coaching community say out loud like they think Jay Hill is the best football coach in the state, including Kalani, including Kyle, including anybody. Like, I've heard a lot of people say Jay is just like, as far as a defensive X's and O's schematic standpoint and to be able to execute a game plan, there's nobody quite like Jay. So we'll go over the names in the mix that I've heard that will be the new defensive coordinator. Looks like it's going to be Colton Swan. There will be the new offensive coordinator. There's some names out there that we'll get to. And then we'll get to the CFP because, quite frankly, the games themselves have been awesome, and we should definitely lean into that. And we'll kind of dig in a little bit more as far as what Utah was able to do against Nebraska in the Vegas Bowl. All right, we'll catch our first break of this Friday show. Our first guest coming up on the other side, live in studio, our college football insider from The Athletic, Chris Kamrani. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, so what we need to do is get to the piano outro at some point. We can't. Let's get CK's mic on. We can't do it now because it's literally at the end of the song, Christopher.
Right.
So, but yes, the piano outro to the song as the bodies are revealed. I couldn't help but think of that as the names one by one of who is following Kyle Whittingham to Ann Arbor were revealed on social media.
I have this downloaded on my phone.
Just the piano outro?
Yeah, done by Voodoo Coyote.
Okay.
Layla piano exit.
Okay.
Because a few years ago, I was mountain biking, as one does.
As apparently one does.
Well, it was a borrowed mountain bike.
Okay, I'm sure it was.
I was with a mountain bike friend.
Okay.
And your guy got going a little too fast.
Sure, yeah.
And my buddy is kind of a sicko.
Uh-huh.
He put a GoPro on the bike, and your boy had a pretty epic crash. And we have it on film. I'll show it to you. And to be funny, I put the Layla outro music on it.
Oh, perfect.
In honor of Goodfellas.
Perfect.
Because your guy was dead.
Yeah, that's it. It's one thing just to hop on a bike and ride on a trail.
Correct.
It's another thing to do that with mountain biking, bro. You
Mountain
put yourself
biking,
in a bad spot.
Correct. It is not surprising that it is like one of the most trafficked reasons why people end up in the ER.
For sure.
In Utah.
Yeah,
I think it's worse than like skiing or snowboarding.
Yeah.
It is it's fun. Don't get me wrong, it's fun, but getting a little too old for it. So yeah, that's I had to download the song. I think this was like 4 or 5 years ago for that video specifically.
Okay. And yeah, it's fun-ish, but also like as I get older in life, my goal is to not die. So I try to
be maimed.
Yeah, I try to do activities where, unless somebody is really slicing a golf ball and it hits me right in the side of the temple, most of my activities these days are with the goal in mind of not dying.
The only thing you're okay with dying are golf clubs themselves.
Yes, if you found out that I got into an altercation on a golf course and a 3-wood was snapped in half and I went that way, then I went happy.
Agreed.
I went doing what I loved. But I don't think that's going to happen. But look, it's a little bit of a morbid comparison, but I'm like everybody else. And unfortunately, I often say this, I am a former social media addict in recovery. This Switch storyline has changed it. I've just been looking for updates like everybody else. Yes. Not posting very much, but just like waiting to hear the news. Because Porter and I talked about this on Tuesday night, our last live show until today. We said, what's the Friday show going to feel like? And both of us had this intel that Kyle was just waiting for the bowl games essentially to be over. And he said that himself. And Kyle said 7 or 8 assistants. And then once the dam broke, it wasn't just Jay. It wasn't just Jason Beck. It was Micah Simon and go Jim Harding. You go to Coy Detmer Jr., Freddie Whittingham, Lewis Powell. Like, they're all going with him. And when I was asked last week, after the news came down that Whit was leaving, who would follow him, and I said, whoever he wants, essentially. What is there any of this that has caught you off guard?
No, not even in the slightest. This is what happens when you roll the dice, which the University of Utah did. Now, there are so many layers to this conversation that we can get into, but the matter of fact is the administration, the power players, the boosters, they rolled the dice. Kyle clearly wanted to keep coaching.
Yep.
So they rolled the dice, not knowing that a top 5 job would open up, not knowing that it could potentially land Kyle there. And granted, like, this is a butterfly effect, man, that like the wings had to have flapped a billion different times in a billion different ways for this to happen. Like, Kalen DeBoer loses against Oklahoma, Kalen DeBoer probably lands a Michigan job. If Kenny Dillingham doesn't go to all the folks in the Valley and say, pay me my money, he might go to Michigan.
Yeah.
Like, this is not – Kyle wasn't Michigan's first choice. I think he knows that. I think everybody really knows that. But you can't be surprised by what happened because you rolled the dice, as I'm talking about the University of Utah, and ultimately you are – this is going to be looked back on as maybe the biggest inflection point in the history of University of Utah athletics. Like, I'll say bigger than Urban. Urban had a couple great years. Awesome. That's not the hard part. The hard part is doing what Kyle did. Now you put your rookie head coach up against it in a way that he never should have been. And expectations are going to be sky high, I think unfairly.
Granted, a lot of Utah fans are operating with this notion that they are going to pick up where things left off, that Morgan's going to be able to do things that Kyle was not, and I don't necessarily disagree with all of those trains of thought, but you are reaping what you sowed, and you can't be mad about it. And by you can't be mad about it as fans. You haven't had to play the game. This is the Game of Thrones, man. The great game is terrifying. Tyrion Lannister. You haven't ever had to experience this before, and now you are.
Winter is coming as well.
The Rains of Castamere. You watched Game of Thrones yet?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I was late to the game.
Okay.
Because it doesn't seem like it would be my thing.
Yeah.
But I had friends tell me, it is amazing, even though you don't love this whole, I wasn't a Dungeons and Dragons
I knew
kid.
you were going to go there.
Respectfully, because I was wrong.
Yeah.
So after the third season, I was in a relationship and we broke up, and my friend's like, hey, congratulations, because now you get to go watch Game of Thrones. And suddenly I was up at 4 a.m. looking up terms, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Phenomenal television.
Lord of Light.
Indeed. The Watch, right? The
Night's Watch.
Yeah, the Night's Watch.
Yeah.
The big wall, right? Okay, anyway.
This is the Red Wedding. This is the Rains of Castamere playing in the background.
The Red Wedding, I almost tapped out. I'm like, dude, you can't do that to me. Don't make me love these people and kill them.
That wasn't it. Surprisingly for my wife, it was when, we shouldn't talk about spoilers. Sorry, go ahead.
Isn't that show 20 years old?
You're right. When they killed John, who's the heartthrob of all heartthrobs.
Correct,
She was just like, I hate the show.
Yeah.
But thankfully.
Well, look, at some point he can't keep coming back.
He can't.
That got a little corny.
I agree.
Anyway,
Anyways.
moving over, because what is it they say? The night is
long. The night is long and full of terrors.
And full of terrors. That's right. So yes, this is the game. So we need to move over into the space. And look, I know it's a little bit yesterday's news, and people are kind of tired of talking about it. But now we have the story fully baked. Now it is completely manifested in the way that we needed to unpack it, to know exactly how to really go about covering it. And whoever was involved in the process of deciding that it's a time to move on now has a massive, massive microscope on them. The target is directly on their back. Whoever was part of the process to say it is time to move on from the Kyle Whittingham era and move over into the Morgan Scalley era. Now, look, we don't have any data. We don't know what it's going to look like, but a lot of pressure, unfairly to me, is now placed on Morgan's shoulders. Do I think he's a smart guy? Yes. Do I think he's a good coach? I do. Does he have connections? Absolutely. Will he rebuild the staff in his own image? Yes, he will. And maybe that's a good thing for a coach that wants his guys around him. These were all Kyle hires. But when it comes to the people behind the scenes, whether it's big money people that work in the athletic department, the athletic director himself, whoever it was, you're wearing this now. And so we'll see how it plays out, but it makes it pretty compelling.
You're not only wearing it, it wasn't broke. And that's my problem. If you had 2 5-7 seasons in a row, if your recruiting was in the tank, if boosters were pissed off because things weren't going well, okay. But you bounce back and you have one of the best seasons that Kyle's had in 21 years.
Yep.
Maybe I'm in the minority here, and maybe the folks online who talk to the guy who talked to the guy who talked to the guy who posts the vague things on social media, eyeballs, GIF. Maybe they know more than I do.
They don't.
You have to let the guy who got you to where you are basically go until it's bad or until he's done. My opinion.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah.
Clearly he was good enough for Michigan, and I understand that all of this needs to be taken into context. I don't think Michigan hires Kyle if the Sharon Moore thing doesn't devolve at the level that it did in real time. But he's at Michigan now, and fans are up in arms because Kyle's taking guys that he hired to go coach with him, and they're mad. They've underlined the statement, this sentence in his statement, leaving it in better hands. Grow up.
Yeah.
These are a bunch of adults
right.
talking about a sport played by 18 to 22-year-old kids who are throwing a fit because the guy who made you relevant left not on his own accord. Grow up.
Yeah. And, ultimately, as time, plays out and, kind of indicates how this is going to go down, we'll have a better understanding of whether or not it was the right move in the long term. But this is how it works in this business when it comes to any time a guy gets a new head coaching job. Even if it's not right away, at some point he is going to bring the people around him that he trusts. We saw it with the Jazz when Will Hardy took over for Quinn. And Quinn took a couple of his assistants to Atlanta when he got the job. The only holdover was Alex Jensen, and I can tell you because I know he had a contract, and Will liked Alex. He's like, let him stay here for one more year. And then after that, Alex Jensen, one of the highest regarded NBA assistant coaches, was told to get gone. He went to Dallas, and Will brought other people in that he knows. Like, this is how the business works. And to your point, all of the things that had to fall into place makes this a really dynamic, like extraordinary story around here where we don't see a lot of this, where, Sharon Moore being a pervert has changed Coy Detmer's life. Like it's wild how that works. And so he loses the job in spectacular fashion. And if you're Witt, there's a little serendipity that now that you're available, suddenly one of the best jobs in all of college football opens up. And I just imagine what Mark Harlan or Morgan himself or anybody, the day that was announced, when they looked at their phone and said, Kyle got what job? Just like the terror that must have come over them, because I'm sure they knew what was coming. I don't think they saw like 7 dudes leaving, but they probably anticipated something like this, and Morgan alluded to that himself.
If you are living in that reality where you think Kyle should have gone outside of the tree that he basically grew himself to do Utah a favor after they decided he was no longer going to be the coach of the program, I don't know what to tell you, man. Yeah. Like, you are living in a state of delusion, and I hope you eventually find your way out of it, but this is the way it works. Porter said it himself earlier. This is another byproduct of a state of lucky, spoiled fans, no matter what fan base you're part of, that you haven't had to go through this before. Like, the audacity of X, the For You opening up first is just ridiculous. But I saw one come across my timeline that said Kyle left Utah in a worse place than Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss.
That's just, yeah.
Man, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that people are vilifying Kyle in this, to me, is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And proof that you, as the fan base, do not realize what Kyle was able to do here for 21 years.
Yeah.
Because without him, you are not relevant, period, end of story.
Yeah. No, he is the one most responsible. Is there credit to hand out to several people? Sure there is. But Kyle is the main reason Utah football is what it never was prior to his 21-year tenure. Urban with a couple of good years. We love Ronnie Mack, who did some good things with the program, but Witt changed everything about the football program and the athletic department.
People don't say Phil Johnson. Why doesn't Phil Johnson get his due?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was Jerry.
Right.
Come on, people. It's not hard. I understand that you feel slighted. You're sad that the first good offense that you've had in a very long time. Actually, it's not. Listen, guys, the offense in the Rose Bowl years was pretty damn good.
Well, and also they were undefeated with Cameron before he, right? Like,
so, yes, I think everybody is up in their feelings for a multitude of reasons, but they feel betrayed when they should not feel betrayed, because there is an alternate reality where Kyle is still coaching this team next year.
Yeah.
But other folks decided that was not what we wanted. Yeah. Come on.
Yep. And as we discussed earlier, there's no such thing as a great head coach without great players. That just doesn't exist. And, the anecdote that Smitty always shares, Jazz-Lakers Game 7, 1988, Pat Riley interviewed before the game, why are you confident you're going to win tonight? He said, I have Magic and Kareem, period, right? So we need to understand what the roster is going to look like, and we do have some breaking news that Teo Johnson is entering the transfer portal. 34 starts, finished this season, 51 tackles, 2 picks. Had a rough BYU game, but was really good all season long. So that leads us into now what Morgan has to do, what that checklist looks like. And do you have any early leads on who the OC is going to be? I think it's going to be Colton Swan. The leads, yes. Oh, the Office, okay. I'm with you.
Well, I was going to go with Big Lebowski. You got any leads,
man?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, they got us working in shifts.
Good pull. But let's defensive coordinator Colton Swan is what we're hearing.
It's got to be Colton.
Okay.
I mean, the first priority is getting your staff picked.
Right.
But and ironically, I think it would have to go and start with the offensive side of the ball because that's where you just have so much more work to be done.
Yeah.
You know, defensively, you have to replace Lewis Powell, which is no easy task. But you are replacing your OC, your wide receivers coach, your tight ends coach, and I'm gonna be the football hipster here and say like losing Jim Harding to me is a bigger deal than losing Jason Beck.
Oh wow! Okay.
I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna say like
okay.
This is a guy who has offensive coordinator experience under Kyle. He is regarded as one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. Recruited one of the, if not the best offensive lines in the country in 2025. Landed a 5-star recruit. I just think like Morgan has his work cut out for him. But like you said, two things can be true at the same time. Utah can be left in a place where maybe year one is going to be viewed a little more differently because of the staff overhaul. But at the same time, now Morgan gets to pick the guys that he wants here. And then fans will say, well, he also picked Jason Beck. Listen, man, the things have changed. The dynamics have changed. And the dynamics have changed so swiftly that Kyle Whittingham wears blue now, and he took whoever he wanted with him because that is part of the – Kyle did not have to drag these guys to Ann Arbor.
No.
I don't understand what like this – and maybe we are living in this alternate reality where folks tend to listen to people who cheer in the press box and who, you know, hug players at practice and all this stuff. Like, the reality is things are shaken out the exact way they were going to as soon as Kyle was officially hired as Michigan's coach.
So, real quick, some other breaking news. Michigan is actually losing a really good player, Zeke Berry, their cornerback.
Yeah.
He was all Big Ten last year. He's entered the transfer portal, so not great news for Kyle. And obviously Kyle's in the process of trying to make sure his roster stays intact. I guess we're covering Michigan for a while as well. But offensive coordinator style, the A-Rod stuff is out there. Yep. And I don't think that's just like random Blogster bros just kind of and look, I don't want to share too much, but A-Rod doesn't live in Provo. He makes that commute.
Yep.
And I guess what I'd say is my instinct tells me he enjoys living in Salt Lake in a way that I don't think he would enjoy.
Close with Morgan.
Correct.
They basically came up around the exact same time on
Correct.
different sides of the ball.
What do you think?
I don't see how it could be anything other than a very good hire. Like Aaron Roderick took a team that had to basically rebuild its entire offense on the fly with a true freshman quarterback who had zero starting experience and got them to the Big 12 championship game and did it with that. Like LJ Martin was the offensive player of the year in the Big 12, but he was hurt again.
Yeah.
Like he gets hurt. So the fact that they were able to do that and overcome all of the things that needed to be adjusted to in real time and with the loss of Jake Retzlaff, like he's a really good recruiter when given the opportunity to recruit. Like what Kalani did, like and the interesting thing is, you know, people always talk about like Kyle, you know, hates throwing the football and doesn't want to turn the ball over. Well, duh. What do you mean? Like, is this new to you? Like people, oh, Jason had way more carte blanche in the Vegas Bowl to throw. Get over yourself. Like, are you serious? Come on, people.
Yeah.
They played a bad team and they beat them the way they should have.
Yeah.
There's no like pie in the flying saucers are not out. Like they won the game they were supposed to. But my point is Aaron worked for Kyle for a long time. As soon as he got to go work for Kalani, he was given the opportunity to call the offense the way he wanted to. He could recruit really good players, could recruit receivers who could catch the ball because in that offense, they throw the ball a lot. And he recruited really good quarterbacks. They have a 5-star kid coming in as of now. Granted, everybody's day-to-day. Like you can't get attached to players or coaches in 2026. Grow up. I'm going to just keep saying it. But, yes, if Morgan decided to offer the job to Aaron, I think that would be a very wise choice.
So let's kind of stay in this space for a moment. And in our next segment, we'll get to some other names. Chris Kamrani is in studio, our college football expert and insider.
You were going to say Chris Kamrani for offensive coordinator.
Would you be interested?
Yeah, 4 verts, dynamic quarterback, 99 speed.
Love it.
Just let me run.
See, I'm a spider 2Y banana guy.
Okay.
It's a complicated route.
6'8", 9 hook.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I just like to talk ball. I'm just part of the community. So the A-Rod stuff is interesting on a few levels because, and let me be clear, we're doing the sports talk radio thing where I'm not reporting this and I don't know this to be true.
We're being responsible.
But I'm sharing what I've been told by my sourcing. That the Kalani to Penn State thing was pretty close. And part of that was Jay, but part of that was not Aaron. And Witt just took the Michigan job, and he hires Jason, and A-Rod's name wasn't even mentioned once. So I wonder if kind of he's feeling like the odd man out here with these last 2 cycles. If Witt didn't want him and if Kalani was going to go to Penn State without him, maybe he wants to go just where he's wanted more with Morgan. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know that. I mean, he got a pay bump because Kalani got everybody a pay bump. Go where you wanted. Go where you have experience. Aaron has experience at both schools.
Yeah.
And he's been successful at both schools. And listen, if the dynamics have changed with Morgan taking the head coaching job and if there is more money on the plate for a guy like Aaron at Utah compared to BYU, I don't know why you don't take that call. But, we've seen some other names floated around. And I just think this job is very unique. And I do my best to not partake in the narrative that, like, you have to be from here because it is interesting. It can be weird at times. But at the same time, I'm like, it's interesting here, and it can be weird at times. So, like, you have to know the ins and outs, whether you're wearing blue or you're wearing red.
And Aaron does. Last thing here, though, I don't know what Devin Dampier's future holds. He is not officially announced. I was told 2 weeks ago he was signing and he was going to come back, but we just haven't heard anything.
2 weeks ago, man?
Yeah. Like
everything's changed.
I know. But so right after the Bird news broke, I was talking about it. I'm like, I wonder what this means about Devin. Then after the show, I got a text like, no, he's coming back. He's going to sign. And it's somebody you would know. I'll just leave it there. So we'll see what happens with Devin. But if this A-Rod thing becomes a reality, does he bring his quarterback with him? Is Bear Bachmeier wearing red next year?
Oh, man. Look at you doing the sports radio thing.
It's back. It's black magic, man. The dark arts. The Dunsethery of sports talk radio.
There it is for JP.
Yep.
Probably. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Like, Utah has a very talented young freshman quarterback who can run the ball like hell, but we haven't seen him throw much at all.
Yeah.
And Devin just had the best game of his Utah career. It's interesting what a player can do when they're healthy, but as we've talked about all year, going back several years, byproduct of having a dual threat quarterback is they're limited when they are not healthy because they run so much.
Yep.
So, and we saw that with Bear too the last few games as well, because when he was limited, he was not the same quarterback. Oh,
this is true. All right, CK's with us. Chris Kamrani live in studio. We'll do one more segment coming up next. RSL made a move. Ojeda's gone, but GAM is in the fold.
Terrible.
So we're going to bring some GAM to the table. We won't talk much RSL today. But CK is going to join us for one more segment. Before we catch a break, we have a brand new client on the show. A big shout out to Wasatch Wagyu. So if you like the sponsors of our shows, you're going to really love this new one because I don't do you wrong, guys. So listen up. Wasatch Wagyu, that's right. Premium, legit Wagyu beef New York steaks. 100% Wagyu burger beefs, roast, tomahawk steaks, filet, and now beef jerky. Well, the holidays are no longer here, but you should still check out some of their steaks or their beef jerky. It's the real Wagyu beef experience. Fantastic marbling with bold, buttery flavors. So check out their beef jerky, premium treat with natural flavors. The family who owns Wasatch Wagyu, husband and a wife, Greg and Stacy, given a true business feel with personalized customer service, small business feel with personalized customer service. All the cows come from right here in Utah, and they're the ones who personally send out their product. You want to buy from Wasatch Wagyu, all you got to do is go directly to wasatchwagyu.com and check out their menu, pick out what you want. They're going to send your meats directly to your door, but if you don't want them to ship, they have local pickup services available in Heber. So do not wait for your Wasatch Wagyu beef. Treat yourself, your family, your friends, and help support local businesses. Enhance the holiday season with Wasatch Wagyu. Go to wasatchwagyu.com with a discount code DJ10 to get 10% off your Wagyu beef order. Our good friends at Wasatch Wagyu. All right, more with Chris coming up next on ESPN 700. piano outro to the song Layla plays in the background. Smith Snowden to the transfer portal. Tao Johnson to the transfer portal. So 2 starters on the defensive end for the Utes officially in the transfer portal. After learning over the past 72 hours that Jason Beck, Jim Harding, Micah Simon, Coy Detmer Jr., Freddie Whittingham, and Lewis Powell, as well as Jay Hill, are all joining Kyle Whittingham in Ann Arbor. Chris Camerani is live in studio. Our college football expert and college football insider. So, again, none of this is surprising. It's just becoming official right before our eyes, and we'll see if anybody joins Whit in Ann Arbor, but this probably is the beginning of a bit of a mass exodus. Is that fair?
From the roster perspective?
Correct, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this is not – is it a guarantee that Kyle leaving is there a correlation between Kyle leaving and guys like Smith Snowden and Teo going to the portal? Maybe, but maybe not. Like – will I be stunned to see a couple Utes end up in the maize and blue? No. But who's to say that even if Kyle stayed, that some of these guys didn't want to test the like everybody is on a year-to-year contract, man. Like until it gets rectified, until they find a way to put, and I hate using this word because everybody does, guardrails in place. You just need to assume that everybody is potentially going to enter the portal when it opens up.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're going to see a significant amount of roster turnover due to Kyle leaving and Morgan being the first-year head coach. I just think this is the way things go now.
Yeah, I mean, look, there were a lot of players that left when Kyle was still here.
Yeah.
You can't,
Cam Calhoun, people were up in arms.
Sure, of course, Keanu, who's now down at BYU. Like, you can't draw a straight line between Whit leaving and these players leaving. You can't. Now, we will see if some of them do end up in Ann Arbor, and if that's the case, then we have a different situation. But some good news for BYU fans, the Falatau Satuala kid, Bountiful High shout-out, is coming back to play at BYU.
Bountiful High, man. They produce some athletes.
Oh, no notes. Correct. Well said, yes.
He that is surprising. I think if he wanted to test the market, I think he would have been able to go anywhere he would have wanted. He probably could have been able to follow. I know he would have been able to follow Jay Hill to Ann Arbor. I'm sure the folks up on the Hill would have loved to have him in Red. I think it was a pretty neck-and-neck race for his recruiting services back in the day. So that's a huge sign for whoever the next BYU defensive coordinator is.
We do have to acknowledge that a good friend of yours took a massive L over the past 72 hours.
Okay.
Shout out Cookie Bro.
Oh, my guy.
I love your guy. We love your guy.
Okay.
We love Cookie Bro.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, answers the question, what would a cookie look like in human form? Shout out to our guy. Is it Jason? Shout out Jason.
Jason McGowan.
But Jason,
I'm not going to speak ill of Jason. But
no, I'm not speaking ill of him.
Okay.
But if you've ever wondered what a sugar cookie would look like as a person, I think Jason answers the question. But our guy got off the sidelines, okay? And this time it wasn't enough. He showered Jay Hill with tweets of love and I'm sure, money and cookie dough batter and whatever else. And our guy Cookie Dough, unfortunately took an L.
Maybe I'm in the minority, but I feel like Michigan is a different beast than even Penn State.
Tongue in cheek, like I said, Kyle's going to get whoever he wants.
Correct.
When I was asked who's going, I said whoever Kyle wants.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you keep Kalani, now comes the hard part. Like this is like I said, we in a few years we'll be able to look back on this time and be able to do the Charlie from It's Always Sunny. Like the bug-eyed, like drawing the lines to how we got to this point. Like it's wild how just a few weeks ago the people were saying that Kalani to Penn State was done and that Jay was going to go with him and so on and so forth. And now Jay is wearing Michigan blue and went 1 for 2. He went 1 for 2.
Yeah, not bad. 50% Cookie Bro. Absolutely. Shout out Crumble. All right, let me hit you with a quote. Gary Anderson was asked about Kyle potentially poaching Utah and BYU for players. And here's what Gary said, quote, "Maybe we should blame Utah for pissing Kyle off." See, my curiosity still lies in how much of this is a vindictive side of Whit. And I don't know him on that level. He has always been nothing but great to me. On the show, off air, when I see him, we talk. But, I don't have dinner with the man. We're not riding motorcycles together. We don't.
Riding Huffies together.
We're not doing Russian, reverse dumbbell presses together or whatever that stuff is.
That's how you hurt your back.
Indeed. So that's why I don't do it. But I would just like Gary is like the perfect guy to talk to about this. How much of, and the problem is, all of this can be a little bit true. So what does the scale look like? The bottom line is Kyle now has a new job. And his only job now is to do the best job he possibly can to make sure Michigan football wins football games. And what he is doing is not a new approach, taking guys with him who he trusts and knows his way, the Witt way. There's not going to be any period of acclimation for the new coaching staff at Michigan. And then how much of it was, oh, you don't think I can coach anymore? Okay. As I've said a couple of times, the ex-spouse with a rich lawyer sits in the mediation and says, okay, take the house.
Opening of Wedding Crashers?
Yep. I'll take the kids. I'll take the car. I'll take the vacation home. I'll take the frequent flyer miles, and I'll take your 401k. Is there a vindictive side of this where you think Kyle is looking like, is there a little bit of the evil grin when he's getting the yes text messages in response to his inquiries?
I don't think it's vindictive. I think there is more fuel to the fire, more wind in the sails. Like, if there was a steady breeze in Kyle's sails beforehand, let's just say the winds are gale force.
Okay.
At this moment,
I like
That's how I would explain it. Like, yeah, you essentially told a guy that built your program that it's his time to go, and maybe for a week you thought, you know what, look at us, we did it, and then December 26th comes, and you should be having a different reaction and a different conversation. And Kyle Whittingham is like, I've known Kyle since I was 20 years old. He's the exact same guy he was then, almost 20 years later. He's an intense dude, man. I told you this. Like, and he knows this, I don't really like the macho, like, warrior, like, football stuff. That's beyond me.
Mm-hmm.
But Kyle is just legit, like, an intense dude.
Yeah.
Like, he gets stoked over beating people, like, in skiing or biking or golf or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what he does. He is an intense guy.
Yeah.
And the reason why Utah was built in his image, and successfully so, for 21 years was because it worked. And now, I don't think there's vindictiveness. I think now he has maybe another level to go in terms of, like, I'll be able to show everybody, whether it's locally in Ann Arbor, nationally, or those folks back in Salt Lake, that I can still do this.
Yeah, and he probably has a lot of motivation because of specific relationships to say, oh, you didn't think I had anything left. You thought, the way it was posed to me is he needs to go somewhere else to recharge his old batteries, was the sentence that was given to me.
Okay.
And if it was given to me, it was given to Kyle, right? And so, like, if that's the message you're getting from your big money people, your athletic director, or anybody in administration, and I don't know if it's Mark, I don't know if it's Taylor, I can't give you a specific booster that it was, but if it was any of these people sending him the message that we don't believe you can do this at a high level anymore, I would imagine that's a lot of fuel that Kyle will use.
Yes. To hear that, yeah. Again, I don't think there's any vindictiveness. I think now, if you look at what Kyle will try to do in year one, is prove that his proof of concept, the way he can build a program, but now have it basically on juice, so to speak, like not the illegal stuff, not steroids, but like now he's dealing with 4- and 5-star guys. He's talking about being able to sit in any living room in the country. Like, people will come to Kyle now.
Yep.
Whereas, Kyle and his guys would go find diamonds in the rough and, turn them into guys who help them win 8 to 10 to 11 games every year, send them to the NFL. Now it's like people will be coming to him to say, "Let me play for you." Michigan is a brand in and of itself. Like, there are kids who grow up in the Midwest who dream of playing for Michigan. Who it's like, in the wake of the Lane Kiffin stuff, we heard a lot about, like, people don't commit to coaches at LSU. You commit to LSU if you're from, like, Louisiana.
Right.
They are the brand.
Yep.
I think you can make the argument that Michigan is held in that same regard in that region of the country because of just what it represents historically. It's the most successful program in the history of college football. You know the fight song in the back of your head when you hear it because of your days watching college football or playing NCAA when you were a kid. It's a Jordan school, for crying out loud. I mean, I don't think Kyle needed any more reason to be motivated, but he certainly seems to have gotten some now.
Yeah, and I understand, by the way, why he would feel that way. And here's another name. It's not a Ute name, but there's a local tie here. Isa Moa, Ben's oldest son, I believe, Celesti's older brother, is hitting the transfer portal from Michigan State, but he started his career at BYU. And there are people reporting that Celestimo is kind of second guessing his commit now to the Utes in Salt Lake City. I'll just continue to repeat it. Kyle probably can get whoever he wants just because of the bankroll he has at his disposal. And Utah does not have the resources of a Michigan. They just don't.
Or the prestige or the national acclaim. You can go down the list of LinkedIn adjectives, don't have the same thing.
Right. Tell me, so the report is Kyle met with Bryce Underwood before he met with the president of Michigan.
Not surprising.
When he took the job, he's like, I got to go sit down with his quarterback.
Yep.
And everything I've seen is Underwood will come back to play for Kyle and then play for Jason. Bryce was the #1 recruit in the country last year. Had an up and down freshman season, some decent numbers, not great.
Clearly wasn't playing for a coaching staff.
Right. It was very organized, I think, is to put that as gently as we can. But what do you know about him, and what sort of fit do you think Bryce is with Jason's scheme?
He was the #1 kid in the country. It was down to Michigan and LSU at one point. They were neck and neck for him. I think there was various reports that he was making in the realm of $10 to $12 million in NIL in just year one alone, which probably seriously pales in comparison to what our P4 schools here in Utah have. But just watching him in the bowl game, still not a polished passer, hell of an athlete. If you are Bryce Underwood, you are looking at what Jason Beck was able to do with Devin Dampier at New Mexico and at Utah, and you think, man, like if we have the types of running backs that we have at Michigan that are 4- and 5-star guys that are better than what Utah has, and if I'm throwing to guys who are 4- and 5-star receivers, yeah, it should work out pretty well for me. I mean, yeah. I think Michigan has 2 or 3 like starting caliber running backs, and they have a 5-star kid coming in who they're expected to retain because his close relationship with Tony Alford, who's the running backs coach that Kyle retains. So if you're talking about a stable of as many as 3 to 4 like starting caliber running backs in the Big Ten, you got to. I don't know what their offensive line looks like. I mean, I think that's one thing that cannot be understated in terms of why Utah was so good this year, was because their offensive line stayed healthy with 2 future first-round picks and 3 guys in the middle that combined to start like 100 career games. That matters. But yeah, if you're Bryce Underwood, you look at what Jason Beck is able to do on the ground, and you think like if you have the types of talent on out wide to complement the running game, you could be pretty good. But obviously that is subjected to what you have coming back on the outside as well.
What do you know about Larry Ellison? You know anything about Larry Ellison?
Oh, is he the Oracle guy?
He's the Oracle guy. I thought The Athletic did a feature on Larry Ellison maybe last year, but I can't find it. Larry Ellison at one point passed Elon Musk as the richest person in the world. As we sit here today, he is the 3rd richest person in the world. Elon passed him, as a result of, $393 billion is where our guy is sitting at right now, and he's the main Michigan booster. He is the one that bankrolls this program. So shout out Cookie Money, shout out Cookie Bro, and shout out the way BYU's doing things. Utah now with their private equity deal. But if you want to know why Michigan told the Big Ten to kick rocks because they don't want private equity involved, they have the 3rd richest person in the world bankrolling their athletic department.
He also, he has ties to the Warriors, or their arena was named Oracle Arena.
Yes, correct.
And the Giants ballpark is also named Oracle Park.
Okay, yeah, and Larry didn't graduate from Michigan. It is his wife, who went to Michigan. I think this is his 7th wife, as one does when they have $400 billion, I guess. So this is a love letter to his wife to bankroll the football program she loves.
You have you are in a different tax bracket, as they like to say these days. But yeah, man. I mean, this is why the $20.5 million for some schools, it was just chump change.
Yeah.
And until you have a set of rules in place, or maybe you never will, these folks are going to be able to operate in a realm where they can cash those checks, cut those checks. And listen, if Bryce Underwood was making $10 to $12 million in year one as the number one recruit in the country, compare that to what we've heard like some of these folks in state are making. Like, I mean, I think there were reports that Devin was like a little over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about 10 times more?
Yeah.
Different bracket.
They just, and that's the problem. And that's why I do think a lot of people who are simply just disappointed in how this has gone down, failing to kind of read the reality of how life works and put yourself in the shoes of somebody who has a family and suddenly gets a phone call to say, would you like to double or triple your salary? Most all of us would say yes to that.
Stages of grief, Spence.
Stages of grief.
I think they're probably somewhere between anger and denial.
Can you name the stages of grief off the top of your head?
I know there's anger and there's denial. There's acceptance is maybe the last one. I got 3. Anger, denial, acceptance. You got me on Google?
Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance.
Yeah, I think everybody's feeling all of those in a different way right now.
I feel like the fan base is in the anger phase of the 5 stages of grief.
I agree. I think anger and denial.
Anger and denial. So the news as we have it right now, the transfer portal is officially open as of today. Smith, Snowden, Te'o Johnson officially in the transfer portal. Okay, over to the offensive coordinator search. I've seen 2 people, who knows if they're real, indicate that Marcus Arroyo is on the short list.
If the people themselves are real or if the list is real?
Both.
Yeah.
Either. I don't know. He did a really good job at Oregon.
Yep.
Head coach at UNLV didn't go well. And he was at ASU, right?
He's at ASU. He took the UNLV job in 2020 when COVID hit. So that I'm not making excuses for anybody, but I think like if your tenure took place during COVID, I think that's a little more difficult. But then again, Kurt Cignetti was hired at JMU during the height of COVID, and look where he's at.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're, but I don't know if Kenny Dillingham calls plays. Porter's a smarter football guy than me. I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like, you know, Matt Nagy is the OC at the Chiefs, but Andy Reid calls the plays.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy who was an OC at Oregon, you know, has head coaching experience. If you were to ask me if it would come down to Aaron Roderick or Marcus Arroyo, I would say go with the guy that you know and knows the state and knows the landscape of what you're dealing with. But nobody's asked me, Spence.
I've asked you. I ask you all the time.
I mean, nobody
in the process has asked you. Well, that's a mistake. They should.
They should.
I've heard football people in our state say they think Jay Hill is the best football coach in Utah, and that includes Kyle. That includes Kalani. Have you heard that sentiment shared?
If you're talking about pure football coach, I've heard it talked about that he is like, you know, a tremendous coach, but like there's so much more to being a football coach than just the X's and O's. And Jay knows that because he was the head coach at Weber State when they were really good at the FCS level for a long time. But yes, I think Jay Hill is kind of the ace up the sleeve at BYU, and now I think he's going to prove just how good he is now that he's going to coach a bunch of 4- and 5-star guys at Michigan.
So that moves over into the space of whether or not BYU made a final play for Jay. I think most people thought that they did because the news came out that Jay was the target, and then the information came out that we'd hear it after the bowl game. BYU wins the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Phenomenal scene.
Do you have a favorite Pop-Tart?
I don't really eat those things, man. I did when I was a kid.
Yeah, same. Sorry.
But understanding of diets when we were younger was a little bit different.
I mean, the guy who eats those peanut butter jelly things.
Hey, no Uncrustable slander on this show. If I want to enjoy an Uncrustable at midday, that's fine. I used to wake up and eat like Frosted Flakes before school.
I love Frosted Flakes.
They're so good.
Yeah.
And like drink an entire orange juice. Ooh. Little did we know that that's just all sugar.
Yeah.
So, yes.
But you were stoked for first period.
Well, first period for us who grew up back where I did was seminary at 6.
Stoked for seminary.
Was not stoked for seminary at any time, especially 6 a.m. in the morning. But BYU wins their bowl, and then no official news surfaces. Pleas from Cookie Bro and others for Jay to stay. Is this just the same reality where Utah doesn't have Michigan resources, and even Brigham Young, with all the resources they have down there, clearly they just can't compete?
This is me just throwing stuff against the wall, unlike all of our friends on the internet
Indeed.
who know way more than me.
Mm-hmm.
If BYU was able to pony up for Kalani at the numbers that have been reported, I think they would have been able to pony up for Jay Hill. And if so, in this theoretical scenario that I'm painting, it comes down to, does Jay Hill want to stay at BYU and make a decent chunk of money and coach with his guys, or does he want to go to Michigan and make a decent chunk of money and maybe have the next foot in the door for the next head coach of the University of Michigan when Kyle decides to finally retire?
Yeah.
In however many years that
is. And that's my belief as well.
If you're a logical person,
yeah.
that to me makes the most logical sense.
Right.
Because Jay's been waiting for, I don't know if Jay's been offered some various G5 or P4 head coaching jobs since he's been at BYU, but I think a lot of people have been surprised that he hasn't taken that leap. But now it's kind of like he's back with the guy who hired him. He's back, he's a Utah grad, back playing, working for Kyle. And if you have the opportunity to have your foot in the door to impress people at Michigan, knowing that your head coach isn't going to coach all that long, that might make more sense than staying on staff, knowing that I think with Kalani's new deal, he's going to be there for a very long time.
Yeah.
And the uncertainty of what next quote-unquote decent job would open that he could potentially interview for.
Yeah, that's that's not official. I've heard people allude to that, and if I had to guess, there has to be something other than just a nice pay bump for Jay to leave Provo to go to Ann Arbor. All right, last thing, RSL with a little gam in their back pocket.
Terrible.
Our guy Ojeda.
Terrible.
My guy Ojeda. Yeah.
Stunned.
Goes to Orlando.
No more Bryans.
No more. We had so many Bryans.
So many.
And now there are no Bryans.
0 Bryans.
But a lot of gam.
Head scratching move. Listen, I think I was in here last January saying that the calendar sneaks up on you on a level that you don't really expect. And I think our guy told me that players report in like 8 days.
It's like right around the corner, yeah.
I think you have. I'm pretty sure RSL's fan base is tired of being gaslit and being told that they're going to compete. And if you're getting rid of starters in real time and not bringing in starters, knowing that this calendar year is the last calendar year that you're going to be at odds with the rest of the transfer world window, you can't end up with another Iago year, man. I know you got your guy. I know we have your guy Olatunji and Trey's guy Ruwan Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
You got a lot of work to do still, man.
Yeah.
You have a lot of work to do. I shudder at the idea of them going into another season with, 2 or 3 DP slots unfilled.
Yeah. Yeah, rough look. I thought Ojeda was really good last year. All right, Christopher, great to see you, my friend. And you're good. Glad you're feeling well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you, my friend.
To you as well. Chris Camarani will catch a break and bring in Guy Holiday coming up right here on ESPN 700. We've got the AutoZone Liberty Bowl going on right now between Navy and Cincinnati. That's tied at 7 apiece with 8:10 left in the second. We'll get back to some of the college football playoff storylines, the latest on the transfer portal, as Smith Snowden and Tao Johnson have both announced today that they will enter the transfer portal. But, of course, a lot of news on the coaching ranks, and our next guest has coached for 30 years, basically, in the highest levels of college football, including at Utah and BYU. Always a pleasure to catch up with the great Guy Holiday. Guy, Happy New Year, sir. How are you?
Everything is fantastic. Happy New Year to you.
Appreciate the time. So I'm not sure if you've been following the news cycle, my friend, but we have some coaching news to get to. As Kyle Whittingham has taken the Michigan job, and he's taken a lot of Utah assistant coaches with him, and Jay Hill from Brigham Young. I just want to ask you, from your vantage point, what it's been like to kind of digest this entire cycle.
It's been interesting. It's not, I don't think it's anything that I expected for sure. But I think for Whit in particular, I think it's a good change where he's going to be at a program where he has all the resources he needs for a 5-year run, and time will tell.
So, Guy, as you probably know, we have a lot of fans in their feelings about this entire thing, and you know, the tie to your college team, I've always just found it to be just more emotional in a way than it is to your pro team because, and look, I know it's all pro now, but you probably met your wife in college. You probably discovered what you were going to do for a living. You met your group of friends, and oftentimes you're emotionally tied to a college team in a way you're just not tied to your pro team. What would you say to the fans out there that are feeling a little betrayed by their former head coach?
Well, it's really interesting because from a coaching standpoint, it's just business. And, you know, I think everything, we got to look at it twofold and look at the whole picture. One, obviously, Whit wasn't ready to retire. I think we can all agree on that. Now, I think where he mishandled the subject, because I was there when it first came up, about how long he would coach, and I think he thought it was great. I'm not going to coach past 65 or 66. It sounded really good, but Whit is not the normal 66 or 65-year-old. I mean, we're still talking about a man that works out religiously every day, doesn't miss a day, and I think it sounded good to him, and then when reality hit, he just wasn't ready. But you can only float that idea out there so many times, and people wanted to change, or administration or somebody, you know, felt like it was time to move on to Morgan, which is great. I think you'll do well. But you can't be pissed at Whit for taking another job if he still wanted to work. And from an assistant coach's standpoint, and I know people are getting, he said he was going to leave Utah in great shape. Well, first of all, you know, when you're looking at your assistant coaches, you have to go with what you're familiar with. And Whit was Jason Beck's contact. I know that personally, as far as when he decided to take the job. And so, you know, for him to want Jason to go with him, or at least offer him the opportunity. And let's not forget, we got to remember, this is a two-way street, right? It's a business relationship. And so when that was offered to Jason, he had the ability to say no, you know, but you can't tell Whit, well, you can't touch a Utah coach. You know, Lewis Powell I was a little shocked because of his relationship with Morgan, but you know, if Lewis Powell came to me and said, Doc, hey, I want to go with you to Michigan, I'm going to take Lewis because of his recruiting ability. Because at the end of the day, as a coach, it's our job. It's not our life as far as being tied to that university. And I know Whit's a little bit different because he was at Utah 30 years, but I don't think Whit is intentionally doing harm to the program. The other thing that you have to put into perspective is Morgan deserves the right to hire who he wants to hire. And who's to say, and I'm not saying Jason, but who's to say that Micah Simon was going to be retained? So these guys got to look out for what's best for them, you know, also. And I've been a coach on the staff, at Mississippi State when people left or were fired, and you were the only one retained, and it's an uncomfortable feeling. And but I'm happy for both parties, because I do truly think Morgan now gets a chance to put his people in place and set his expectations for those people. And and I get the fans. I've never been a fan, so it's really hard for me to look at it from that perspective. But I did a podcast with Eric Weddle and Zach, and one of the big differences between the NFL fan and the college fan, NFL fans are so tied to the professional sport and knowing the turnover. College is like a lifetime. And because you love that college so much, you think everybody around it would give their life to work at that college. But that's few and far between, because at the end of the day, it's a business. And you have to do what's best for you and your family. And sometimes that's a hard pill for people to swallow.
Yeah, and, good insight there. Kind of been discussing it. I always try to bring these sports stories into the real-life realm, because I do think there's a lot of parallels. And, if you're listening and you're upset with how this has gone down and concerned about what's next, and you're taking it out on specific people and taking this personally, I mean, to your point, Coach, like most everybody out there, if they had a phone call and that phone call was you can double or triple your salary and you can work for a bigger company, I would imagine most people say yes to that, right? Like there's not a big gap between the process that coaches go through to decide if they want to change jobs or take another job that most normal folk go through as well. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, and let's be honest. If you have an opportunity to be president at a Fortune 500 company or president at a startup, and I shouldn't say a startup because that's not fair, or president at a company that's, not considered to be in the same realm as this Fortune 500 company, you're probably going to take that opportunity because the chance to make more money, secure your family, it's just better. And for people who don't understand the profession, there are certain schools that if they call, you go, because it sets you up for your career. And so once you have it on your resume, and Michigan is one of those schools, it is a top 5 program. If Notre Dame calls, you go, because once you get Notre Dame on your resume, people look. Okay, if Alabama calls, which just look at the all 4 coaches in the college football championship, they all worked at Alabama at some point. So it's just certain schools, if they offer you the opportunity in college coaching, because they are considered to be the pinnacle of college coaching, you have to do it. And sometimes feelings are going to be hurt behind that, but you have to do what's best for your career. I mean, and I would say a kid because I recruited him, but Micah Simon. I recruited Micah Simon to BYU. I believe he did play for me his red shirt year. His freshman year was on the team. I know he did. I shouldn't say I believe he did. For his career at 28 years old to be the receiver coach at Michigan, oh, my God. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that what that just did for his career is unmatched. Jason Beck at 45, to be the OC at Michigan, and if they can put up the numbers at Michigan that they did at Utah with the complete national exposure, Jason Beck will be a head coach inside of 2 years. He will have head coaching opportunities simply because he did it at Michigan, okay? And it's no different than any assistant coming from Alabama. Would those assistants gotten those head coaching opportunities if they weren't in those highly successful programs? I mean, you have to start being honest with yourself. And Dan Lanning is the head coach at University of Oregon after being defensive coordinator at Georgia and then working at Alabama. Kirby Smart, no ties to Oregon. Kirby Smart is the head coach at Georgia. Now, granted, he played there, but he won multiple national championships under Nick Saban. Mario Cristobal was out. He was out of coaching. I mean, He was at FIU, ran it, did the best he could, got other opportunities, came on Nick Saban's staff. From there, where does he go? You know, he's at the University of Oregon. From Oregon, now he's playing for the national championship at his alma mater or in the Final Four at University of Miami. So certain places are career changing, and you have to explore it.
So Gary Anderson was asked today about the danger of Kyle coming for players that played for Utah or BYU, and Gary's response was, "Well, maybe you should blame that on Utah for pissing Kyle off." What's what do you make of that, Coach?
Oh, that's Gary being Gary. Look, I think when it gets down to it, we would have to close our eyes and say that this ended with this the way that Kyle Whittingham wanted to. I don't care if it's Kyle Whittingham. I don't care if Kalani Sitake left and went to Penn State. I don't care if it's Lewis Powell going to Michigan or whatever coach leaves one of these programs or God, I can't remember Kyle's last name that went down to SC from who I worked with at Utah. You know, those coaches realize the talent level. Kyle McDonald, thank you. They realize the talent level within that state, and it's a very good, well-kept secret. There's talent in the state of Utah, and it's ever growing. Now, you know, what Utah has to do and BYU has to do is put on their big boy pants and not let them get out. You know, I mean, that's just the way it is. But people been coming. Hell, when I was there, we lost a top offensive lineman at the University of Texas, right from across the street from us at East High School. So it's not like people hadn't been coming. I mean, that if you think it took Kyle Whittingham to wake up one day, to wake up the recruiting to Michigan, I think you're sadly mistaken, because I know of several players that's come through the University of Utah that's gone on to other colleges and not Utah or BYU.
So when it comes to, you know, oftentimes in our business, Coach, and we've got Guy Holliday with us who coached at Utah and coached at BYU and has been in the game for 3 decades, basically, on the program today. When it comes to a piece of news like this in the sports talk radio space, you can tell when it's actually a really big piece of news when you're pulled by the newsroom on television instead of just the sports department, or asked to do a bunch of radio hits across the country. And over the past week and a half, I've done multiple, but I don't know the business like you know it. And so I'm just going to ask you some questions that I was asked to get your perspective. And the first one, the main question that I've been asked, whether it was a Nebraska station, a Michigan station, is if Kyle Whittingham was not ready to retire and wanted to continue to coach, why isn't he coaching at the University of Utah?
That's a good question, and I'm going to answer it the most honest way I can. Whit's strength is being a football coach. He is not really good at developing off-the-field relationships, let's say with boosters and so Whit's a man's man. So I would say Whit is not, and he wants what he wants for his program to be successful, and he's brought a lot of success to Utah. I think it just got to the point where he floated this idea out there. People got a little bit tired of it going back and forth. Not a little bit. Obviously, people got tired. And I think it rubbed the administration wrong, and I think there was a break between the administration and Kyle at some point from a communication standpoint. I think it started there, and I know Whit digs in. He doesn't give in. He digs in, which is my mantra also. And he wanted what he wanted and felt like he deserved it. And I think there's a certain people that were around that felt like maybe it was time this year or maybe it was time next year, and he didn't feel that way. So I think it's a difference of opinion or difference of lack of communication or miscommunication. And some people say, well, maybe Kyle was being unreasonable, but you're talking about somebody that was at a program 21 years, and the only thing he wanted was the chance to bring Utah a national championship, and it takes resources to do that. Now, I think one of the issues there, are you going to go get your own resources or do you depend on other people? And in Witt's mind, he's the head ball coach. That's not his job to go out and get resources. And the way college is set up is tough to be that way. But we all know Witt is Witt, and he's one of the most loyal people I know, and he's a fighter, and he just wasn't ready to go out. And if you're not ready to go out, then you take a step back, and Michigan was there, and they, in my opinion, hit a home run.
Interesting stuff. So before we get over to Morgan, and that's where I want to spend the final portion of our conversation, I wonder, because nobody could have any idea that the Michigan job was going to come open literally the same day Kyle steps down. But what do you think the reaction was from anybody who you know, Coach, that was on the side of it's time for him to go when they got the alert on their phone that Kyle Whittingham was now the new head coach at Michigan, understanding the resources he has now at his disposal?
Oh, I think everybody should be happy for him, and I think it worked out for him, and it worked out for Morgan, and it worked out for. I heard Lou Holtz one time say 10 years is about when it starts to turn on you. You know, we heard Nick Saban numerous times say Alabama fans have become spoiled. If we don't win the national championship, it's a bad season. And I think at the University of Utah, sometimes, you know, when we were getting to those Pac-12 championships back-to-back and pulling up short, and then you finally get over the hump, I just think people get impatient or they don't like so much was made of how he handles the injury report, how we have a right to know what's going on inside the program. And people in today's age just want more transparency, and that just wasn't Kyle's strong point. He will adapt because he always does, and I think he'll handle the Michigan press a little bit differently than he handled the Utah press.
All right, so you've alluded to this a couple of times, and I've heard some other people say this as well. Morgan's job became a little bit more complex, having to rebuild his entire coaching staff. And we need to reiterate, and you've done a good job, Coach, of helping us just understand, like, this is how this business works. You know, when Urban left, he took the offensive staff, and oftentimes if a guy gets a head coaching job, he wants his guys around him instead of having to acclimate. Like, all these guys know Kyle. They know how he operates, so this is just how it works. But now it's Morgan's time, and it's Morgan's turn to really make this thing into what he wants it to be. So that's kind of exciting. He gets a blank canvas to work with. So tell us what you're hearing. If you have any specific names, it would be great as far as who you believe will end up landing on Morgan's staff.
You know, I'm like everybody else because I'm not there. Obviously I had a great working relationship with Morgan. I don't think Whit and I were close after we left. I keep in touch with Morgan from time to time, but we don't have that relationship where Whit would we would bounce things. He would bounce some things off of me or ask me, what did I see? That's not going to be, that's not my relationship with Morgan. But I think, I'm hearing Jordan Gross, which I think would be a great hire. He's a Ute. I think the OC I've heard the same names everybody else has heard, from Marcus Arroyo down here at Arizona State, which I live here in Phoenix, to Aaron Roddick, which is really interesting to me, to Jonathan Smith, the guy from Texas Tech or Texas State I'm not really familiar with. But I think I'm just going to tell everybody that's listening to this program, you need to understand something. Morgan Scalley is one of the smartest people I know. I will say it unequivocally, without a doubt, one of the smartest people I know. And if anybody didn't think that Morgan had a plan from the day that Witt stepped down, you've lost your mind. He's been preparing this for a year. And I'm going to say this again. Every coach on that staff, the moment Witt left, your job is in jeopardy. It's in jeopardy. And it may not be this week. It may not have been this coming season. But you're not Morgan's guy. And you always want to be on a staff where you're his guy. And, so I think, hearing those names, that excites me. I'm hoping that Marky at the Wire will be there. I mean, he's obviously a personal friend, really family to me. So I'm hoping he gets to stay on. I haven't heard much in foreign names. Everybody's going to talk about the two most important hires on the staff, bar none, is going to be the offensive line and offensive coordinator from the offensive side. The most important hire is the strength coach, which right now Doug is still in place, but those things, they'll all work itself out. I have no doubt that Morgan, looking at the GAs when I was there and people he brought in, he would go outside of the state of Utah circle and that bubble, I will say, and really find people who bring new ideas and new passion. And so I think that I have no doubt in my mind that Morgan's going to put together a very confident staff, but one that's very excitable. And because Morgan is an excitable person and he's a lot of fun to be around. So that staff will be in Morgan's character. He's very disciplined, very much like Witt in that part, where he's a little bit different. Morgan likes to have fun and really goof around. His personality is just fun to be around.
That actually leads me to my next question. And look, change is uncomfortable, and there's a lot of nerves. There are a lot of nerves around here, right, of fans that, quite frankly, have become a little spoiled because of what Witt has done for 21 years. And lost in all of this, Coach, is that Utah football had a hell of a season this year. 11 wins, fourth time all time. Kyle just coached one of his best teams. Not his best team, but one of his best seasons just took place. So now it's a new day. It's a different era for a fan base that's accustomed to a certain style. How much of the Morgan Scalley era will feel like the Kyle Whittingham era, and what about it do you think might be different?
I think you're still going to see great defense. I think you're going to see really good special teams, and just like with the discipline, attention to detail will be there. I think what you may see more is more creativity on the offensive side of the ball. Morgan is very astute in offensive football, so I think he'll have some input into what they do on offense. But I can guarantee you this. One thing I know about all defensive coaches, they look for people who've hurt them in the past or schemes that they've struggled with. So I think you'll see a spread scheme. I don't know this for sure. I know Jonathan Smith is a very much like Ludd, a pro scheme. I think what people have to realize in today's football and the transfer portal, your scheme has to be not extremely simplistic, but it has to be learnable quickly because we're dealing with one and done players. So, but I think you'll see, I think you'll hear the players talk about having more fun. I think you'll hear things like that. That's what I think you'll see from the Morgan Scalley era. But honestly, I would be shocked if you see any drop-off in the win-loss column. But I would expect to see more creativity on offense. I think you'll see better passing game on offense overall, which some people say Witt stifled the passing game, and went run first. I think you still will see any defensive coach will want to run the ball. But I think you'll see an athletic quarterback always because that's what gives defense. If you ask any defensive coordinator what bothers them the most, the first thing they will always say is an athletic mobile quarterback because you got to account for them. That's one. The second thing is motions. So I think you'll see something where the players aren't stagnant, where they're moving around multiple formations. But I think Utah will get a very exciting brand of football.
Well, Guy, it's always a pleasure. You're great to join us to give us some insight on how these things actually work behind the scenes. And to your point, hopefully it's a win-win, right, for Ute fans in Morgan Scally and Coach Wade in Ann Arbor. Happy New Year. Thanks again for the time. Be well, okay?
Happy New Year to you, and thank you for having me. Go Utes.
Guy Holiday, 30 years in the coaching business. One of the rare guys, well, I guess it's not rare, because a lot of guys have coached at both BYU and Utah. Guy is one of those people. Appreciate his time on the program today. I want to remind you to visit Young Automotive's year-end sales event through January the 3rd. With qualifying purchase, you receive a $1,000 Amazon gift card, 5 years of maintenance, and 90 days with no payments when you finance with America First Credit Union. Young Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, which is 1481 West Riverdale Road. 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Your 4 o'clock hour is Roxy Bernstein and Dave Fleming. So keep it here on ESPN 700. Great stuff from Guy Holliday today. Guy in the coaching business for 30 years, basically, and coached on both Utah and BYU staff. Of course, there's been a lot of coaching news around these parts, and we'll get to more of this coming up. And our buddy Roxy Bernstein, old school Pac-12 network guy, of course, with ESPN, doing a bevy of different things. Roxy, Happy New Year, sir. How are you?
Spence, Happy New Year. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. And I'm my mind is still kind of blown as far as how this whole cycle has gone down. And obviously, as you know, a couple of Fridays ago, 3 Fridays ago now, we get an email that Kyle Whittingham was stepping down as Utah's head football coach. Did not say retire, and he is very much not retiring. He's just, taking one of the top 4 or 5 jobs in college football. And it's been announced that in addition to Witt leaving Utah, Jason Beck, Jim Harding, Micah Simon, Coy Detmer Jr., Freddie Whittingham, and Lewis Powell are joining him in Ann Arbor, and Jay Hill is leaving Brigham Young to be Michigan's defensive coordinator. You cover this program for a long time. I just wonder what you make about how this wild news cycle has been.
Well, it's not surprising that he stepped down, right, Spence? And look, you and I have talked about this over the years. It was going to happen at some point, and I think the stars were aligning potentially that this was the year. And we thought last year could be the year, maybe even 2 years ago. It depends. And so it didn't come as a shock that he stepped away from the University of Utah. I think what's stunning is what has transpired since. And look, we all knew Morgan Scalley was more than likely going to be the guy. He was the coach in waiting when Witt did elect to step down. But the Michigan situation arose. And at first, you're like, what? But it makes sense, Spence, for what Michigan needs right now, right? Considering what they just went through. They need some stability. They need somebody that is going to be a strong figurehead and leader, where there is going to be no hint of any extracurricular activities that could lead to trouble from the head coach. It makes sense from their point of view, but it's still kind of jarring when you think about it that Kyle Whittingham leaves Utah and now is the head coach at Michigan. And look, he was going to probably take his guys. These guys have been with him for a long time. Hill wasn't with him recently, but he'd been with him before, and there's a relationship there. I don't think anybody should be stunned in that regard. It's just surprising that this is what it's come to in terms of, okay, Kyle Whittingham leaves Utah. He's now in Michigan, and you're seeing a little bit of an exodus from the building for all the guys, but they were his guys, and they were in that circle of trust for Kyle Whittingham, and I think that's the way he looks at it, and he wants to go to war with his guys, so to speak.
Yeah, and look, we have a tremendous amount of Ute fans in the market right now, very upset. They feel betrayed. And, feel however you want to feel. I'm not telling you you should feel differently. If this is your reaction, this is your reaction. But this is the business, Roxy, isn't it? I mean, usually whenever a new head coach is hired, and this isn't just a college football thing, but it certainly is maybe more prominent in college football because oftentimes in pro basketball, even you don't really know the assistants that much. But we had a coaching changeover here in Utah 4 or 5 years ago now, and Will Hardy took over for Quinn Snyder. Several of Quinn's assistants are now on the bench in Atlanta where he is, and the only holdover was actually Alex Jensen, ironically enough, who stuck around for 1 year. And I can tell you he had a contract for a year. And Will's like, yeah, because who doesn't love Al? But after a year, he goes to Dallas. Now, of course, he coaches Utah. But this is just kind of how this stuff works, right? I want to reiterate, I'm not telling fans how to feel, okay? If you're upset by this, be upset by it. But this is just the business of what coaching in sports is like, yeah?
It is big business. It's not just business, right? With all the money that's at stake. And when Kyle took the Michigan job, he had an indication his guys were coming with him. So that shouldn't have been a surprise. Look, I get some of the bitterness and frustration for the Utah fans because they view it that, Kyle's raiding our program. Well, it was his program, and he was the one that built it, and he's going to take the guys that he wants with him. And now Morgan Scalley can benefit from it and get his guys in there, even though he had relationships with a lot of these coaches. And look, can there be frustration? But I don't get if there's bitterness and frustration towards Kyle because he's doing what's best for him. And what's best for him is surrounding himself with people he's comfortable with working with on a daily basis. Yes, they were anchored at Utah, but at the end of the day, they're going for the opportunity. And there's no guarantee that Morgan Scalley was going to keep all these guys either. You don't know what would have happened as Morgan Scalley fills out his coaching staff and progresses with his program. They have to look out for themselves. They want to be in a good spot. And let's face it, you're going to one of the blue blood programs, one of the elite programs in college football. It's not like they're leaving the University of Utah to take a job in Podunk, North Dakota, right? They're going to Michigan, and you can't be upset with that.
So I feel like I've landed in the space of more or less understanding how this has gone down based off of, and I'm talking about, Witt ultimately leaving Utah. Because, you know the deal with a story that's this big and this seismic, oftentimes you're pulled by the newsroom instead of like the sports department, or you do radio hits across the country. It's been a little bit wild, Roxy. Like in 48 hours, Kyle Whittingham became a national name that he wasn't in 21 years here. And that's just the power of the Michigan brand and the winningest program in college football history and Oracle money. Larry Ellison, the third richest person in the world, a $20 billion endowment. Kyle is now on just a different level when it comes to notoriety. And if he goes and wins Big Ten championships, and who knows, a national championship, he'll be talked about as one of the great coaches of this era, not just in the state, but with great responsibility comes great pressure. Help us understand the magnitude of the Michigan job where 5-7 just won't do, right? Like that's not okay at Michigan.
They'll run you out of Ann Arbor if you go 5-7. And it comes with the territory. And I think whether it's Kyle Whittingham, who has ever coached there, whether it's Jim Harbaugh, Bo Schembechler, they understand the undertaking of this job, that it isn't just another college football job. For example, look, he earned enough over the years at the University of Utah. When he goes 5-7, that there is a grace period. Hey, it was a down year, but we'll bounce back. And he did. And look what he did this year. And the success that he had, taking Utah to a Rose Bowl, winning a Sugar Bowl. It's remarkable the success that he had there. But it's a whole different landscape, and you're under the microscope no matter what you do. Right? If Kyle Whittingham's out and about in Salt Lake City, people will come up and say hi. I remember I was at a Mammoth game actually recently, and he was there. And everybody was applauding, standing up, but they were leaving him alone. He could live his life. He was just watching a hockey game and hanging out with his wife. That's not going to happen in Michigan. No matter where you go at the University of Michigan, you're under a microscope. You go out to dinner, it's news. You happen to go watch this kid play, it's news. Where that's the one thing that the uncomfortableness that comes along with the job, especially, Spence, in this day and age of social media. There is nothing private about your life anymore. He could try to be as tight with everything as possible, but stuff and people are going to want to know what he's doing. And that's the unfortunate news cycle of the 24/7 social media. Everybody's a reporter now with a phone. And that's unfortunately the landscape that comes with being the head coach at the University of Michigan.
Yeah, and if we kind of backpedal just a little bit, I was alluding to how this process played out that led to Kyle leaving. And among I think I did 5 or 6 different hits over the past 10, 11 days, a couple of Nebraska hits because they played Nebraska in the Vegas Bowl, and then some Michigan hits as well. And the question that I was asked, there's one question that I was asked every single time I was on another show, because it's been interesting kind of watching in real time. People learn who Kyle is. Of course, we all know who he is here, and anyone that's in the college football ecosystem knows Witt. But like your random Michigan booster that has never been to Salt Lake may have never even heard his name. And so a lot of people were curious, like, well, wait a second. In 21 years, he built a program in Salt Lake City, Utah, into one of the preeminent college football programs in the Western United States. If this man still wanted to coach, why isn't he coaching here? And I think it's just going to be interesting to see how this plays out. We'll get to the Morgan stuff in a moment because, I think it was a combination of some of the money people here locally that you have to have in your back pocket and some members of the administration that really did feel like a change was needed. And there's part of me that believes that's so wild because Kyle, in my opinion, had earned the right to go out on his terms, but I'm certainly not in those rooms. But I cannot imagine what the reaction was of anyone involved in this process when the alert on their phone said Kyle Whittingham is now the head coach at Michigan. because instantly that changes everything. You had to see that he was coming to raid the house, right? Like once you read that news.
Oh, there's no doubt about that they were aware of what potentially could happen. And considering, look, the down year of 5-7 last year, he still won 10 games in 3 of the last 5 years, and he's been to 2 Rose Bowls. And I think with that success, that's why he was so attractive to Michigan, to be able to have success at a place and transition Utah from the Mountain West to the Pac-12 and then into the Big 12. And to win 10 games this year after a tough season a year ago and a great bounce back. He has been a successful coach every stop of the way. Look, I'm not sure the inner workings of what happened, whether he was pushed out, whether it was his decision, whatever the decision came to be. And you mentioned the money, people, Spence. We know what's driving college athletics. It's money. And if you don't have the financial backing, you're not going to have a roster. And it's about the players and the money that you need to get a talented roster to build. And when you can have success, look at what Curt Cignetti did at Indiana, right, in just 2 years. It's not necessarily just having the money, but spending the money effectively, bringing in the right people that fit. And that's what Kyle, I think, is so good about identifying, is people that filled his feet, that really feel his culture and program. And that's what he was able to do at Utah. And look, it's going to be I think it's going to be a different looking Michigan program, because it's going to take on the personality of Kyle Whittingham. It's going to be very different from Jim Harbaugh and Jerome Moore and the way it was at Michigan. But he is a tremendous football coach, and it now puts Utah in a tough situation in terms of moving forward, because a lot of that familiarity with the coaches that have been there over the years, it's going to be a completely new staff for Morgan Scalley.
Yeah, and to your point about, the Whit way now being the Michigan way, and I know there's probably not a completely direct line to what happened, but I had to chuckle when, the news was announced that Kyle gets the job. And then within about 2 hours, he gets, recommitments from Michigan players that play on the D line and the O line, and then a wide receiver is like, I'm out. I can't. I'm transferring. Like, you know what I mean? So I wonder what you make of what the Whit way is, since you covered the team, and then what you know about Michigan, and if you think his proof of concept in Salt Lake will turn out to be proof of concept in Ann Arbor.
Well, the funniest thing for me, and you mentioned it when he got hired, and all of a sudden you do the checks on Kyle Whittingham, is like the people were scrolling through his social media. First off, it was shocking to me that he had an Instagram.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you he doesn't know how to use it. I guarantee you somebody is running it for him. But the only women he was following were either staffers at the University of Utah or his family. Right?
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And there is no worries about anything with Kyle Whittingham in terms of getting himself in trouble. This is who he is. He is a man of character, of conviction, and he's going to do things the right way. And now he heads to Michigan, and he is going to do things the way he built it at Utah. It's from the inside out, right? It's line play. That's what his program foundation was built on, dominating at the line of scrimmage. And for as great as skill people can be, yes, you need a quarterback, and yes, you need to have speed on the outside. And it certainly helps a running back. But at the end of the day, Spence, we all know where the game of football is won. Up front, on the lines, offensive and defensive lines. That's where the bread and butter of Kyle Whittingham's program has been. And that's where he's going to win football games in Michigan. He's going to build from the inside out, and that's where it all starts for Kyle Whittingham, is controlling the line of scrimmage.
So over to what's next. And, I sincerely mean what I'm about to say. I do believe that there is a world that exists where this could be good news for everybody involved, where Kyle gets the opportunity to go to the biggest and brightest stage in college football in the Big Ten. I mean, we had your old buddy Yogi Roth on the show this week, and he just put it very bluntly. A lot of people in college football believe that we're operating in the P2 world, not the P4 world. And if you're honest about, your feelings concerning that, I don't know that it can be debated. I mean, the Big Ten and the SEC really have all the control and the leverage. The majority of the teams that win national championships and dominate the field in the college football playoff are from those two conferences, and we could talk about whether or not that's fair. But Texas Tech smoked most everybody in the Big 12, and Oregon absolutely thumped them. The data is all there. NFL draft picks, TV markets, ratings. The SEC and the Big Ten are where you want to be. So Kyle gets an opportunity to do it on the biggest and brightest stage, a conference where if you win 10 games, you are going to the CFP. And then Utah now moves into this new age. And look, change is hard. Certainly, this is a fan base that's been spoiled rotten by a great head coach for 21 years, and we're all lucky to have been a part of what Whit built. But based off of your knowledge of who Morgan Scalley is and what now is ahead for this new era of Utah football, what would you say concerning that dynamic?
I think he's ready for this. Look, nobody can tell you how good he's going to be as a head coach. He's never done it. And it's the same thing, for example, at my alma mater, Tosh Lupoy takes over as the head coach, right? He's been a tremendous recruiter, great defensive mind. He was the Oregon defensive coordinator, masterminded that shutout of Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. But it's the same thing for Morgan Scalley. We've seen him. He has been highly successful in the role as defensive coordinator. Now you're moving over to the corner office. You've got the responsibility. It's on your shoulders now, and you're not just running the defense. You're running an entire program. I think he is ready for this. For everything I've seen, I've been so impressed with my numerous conversations with Morgan over the years that he is a brilliant football mind, and he knows not just defense, but he knows the game of football. His accolades from friends, from former colleagues, they're glowing, and the reports about him and the things that he can do as a football coach. But now it's going to be different. I think he'll be successful, but nobody really knows the answer, and that's the risk you take when you hire a coach that has never been a head coach before. He's been responsible for one side of the football. Now he's responsible for the entire program, but I think he is ready for this opportunity.
So moving over to a couple minutes here, and then I'll set you loose, Roxy. Moving over to the landscape of the world of college football. I mean, I did want to get your thoughts on how and look, Yogi's with the Big Ten. Shout out, we love our guy. But he's not wrong. I mean, it's just I'm not. First of all, I'm not a conference elitist. I'm not one that believes you need to put Big 12 bumper stickers on your car. Like, the sport changes so much. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not. That's not how I operate. And my sincere hope is that at some point Utah gets a Big Ten invite, or whenever the next shift that we've all talked about for years takes place, Utah's part of that club. But nobody knows how it's going to play out. Like, does it feel from your vantage point that this is a sport where if you're not in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're not really in the group you need to be in?
It certainly does appear that way, with the SEC getting, 5 teams in the playoff. And look, we had a great game last night between Georgia and Ole Miss, but necessarily hasn't been the best showing for the SEC in the playoff, with Alabama getting boat raced at the Rose Bowl by Indiana. But it certainly appears to be the haves and the have-nots. And look, Miami can be the party crasher. They've won a couple of games, and they were impressive in their first 2 wins, going to Texas A&M and beating them on the road, and then having a great showing in their bowl victory on the other night and at the Cotton Bowl. So I just think that is the opportunity there to win when you're outside those 2 conferences? Yes, but it does make it more challenging. And there were skeptics that didn't feel Miami deserved to be in. And there was the argument for Notre Dame. Well, look, you can talk about your blue in the face, but who should have gotten in? I don't necessarily think this justifies Miami being in, although I do think that Miami should have been in. And they now have won a couple of games, and they beat Notre Dame head-to-head. But unfortunately, that's the way this game is going, and you're going to have this. We need a commissioner, Spence. You need to have a commissioner in college football. We need one in college basketball, because some of the stuff that's popped up recently in college basketball is wild, right? Where Baylor gets this player eligible who is actually already traded by an NBA team. Like, he's been drafted and traded already, and yet he's got 4 years of eligibility. I'm trying to wrap my head around that. You need to have commissioners for both college football and college basketball, because it's pretty much out of control right now, and there are no guardrails for anybody.
Yeah, well said. And it's just beyond time to get the wild thing is the numbers pour in, and so many people are still watching. Like, the people love this sport on a level where if you could actually get it under control, it would probably blow you away as far as, what sort of level you could get to, just like running a business, even though business is good. But I know you got to run, but before I set you loose, one of Roxy's many responsibilities, he's a very busy man, as he does a lot of hockey, and the Mammoth have just kind of been fine. They have not been good. They have not been bad. And for every good night they have, they seem to follow it up with a bad one. And there's a little bit of noise around Torney, the coach, of course, of the Mammoth, Coach Bear, as we call him. 19 wins, 19 L's. We're looking at 41 points, which gets them still in that area where there's plenty of possibilities for wild card or maybe even playoffs if they start to turn it around. Like our pro basketball team, they're young and also have tremendous amount of assets and financial flexibility should they decide to make a move. But it's been, I think, a little bit underwhelming, Roxy, from my seat. What do you make of the season for the Mammoth so far?
Well, it's certainly been frustrating, right? Because, Spence, this was the year that people were hoping there would be the playoffs and a step forward. Like, first off, you couldn't speculate on the injury to Logan Cooley. It happened. He's been out for, almost a month now. And he is so vital to what they do offensively. He's your top-line center. And it's hard to win hockey games when you don't have your number one center. But they need to get healthy. That was an impressive win they had yesterday against a team that's in a similar boat because the Islanders, with Schaefer, they have a lot of young talent themselves. So you go on the road, you win. They continue the road trip with the Devils and the Rangers. You play the New York Three. But you're just trying, I think, weather the storm until you can get Logan Cooley back. And, look, it was great that you saw the hat trick yesterday from Dylan Gunther. It puts more on the plate of him. I think it was great to see Clayton Keller get picked to Team USA and go to the Olympics. And the captain certainly has had a trying season with what's gone on, losing his father. But this is a team that you're hoping that can just stay healthy. You don't want to mortgage the future. That's the thing for Bill Armstrong and Chris Armstrong is there is so much talent coming. And there's so much explosive firepower offensively coming with this group, and the prospects are there. You don't want to mortgage the future and get to a short-term goal when, maybe get into the playoffs if you make this move or that move. Patience is sometimes the hardest thing to have, and they seem to have it at this point because if you hold on to what you got, not every prospect is going to pan out. We know that. But the ones that do, if you hit more than you don't, all of a sudden you're talking about a team that's a legitimate Stanley Cup contender with the talent that they have coming in the pipeline.
What do we got for the new year? You got college hoops tonight. You traveling like crazy first couple of weeks?
I got a home game tonight. I've got Notre Dame Cal, 9:00 your time on ESPN2. I got a little Zags hoop next week. I go to Gonzaga, and then I'm bouncing around, man. I got then Arizona TCU. I'm actually coming out there for hockey. I've got the Maple Leafs against the Mammoth in a couple of weeks. I'm there in Salt Lake City. Then Carolina and Duke come to the Bay Area, so I'll have both their games against Stanford.
Oh, nice.
So we're bouncing around. You know me. I love to get my variety, and I'm getting to new places. In fact, later this month, I'm going to Mississippi State for the first time.
Nice.
I've never been to Stark Vegas before.
Very
Is
nice.
it nice? I don't know.
I was mostly saying nice because it's a new experience. I don't know that I ever would enjoy that spot. But anyway, it's fun for you, Roxy. That's all that matters. Look, great insight as always. Safe travels. Keep up the great work. And most importantly, good health this year. Happy New Year, okay?
Happy New Year, bud. See you soon.
All right, Roxy Bernstein, our buddy from the Pac-12 Network back in the day. He is with ESPN and does a bit of everything. We're talking college football. We're talking college hoops, does hockey, the baseball, a little basketball. He is a jack of all trades. Always appreciate Roxy's time. He is on social media at Roxy Bernstein is where you find him. We'll catch a quick break. Dave Fleming, who was on the call for the Vegas Bowl as Utah beat Nebraska, will join us. Then we'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the show. When we say goodnight, it'll be Duke Mayo Bowl. Mississippi State, I believe it's Wake Forest in that game. So college football on your radio station tonight. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, special thanks to Roxy Bernstein. I always enjoy Roxy's time, our buddy from the old school Pac-12 network. We'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the show tonight, and then when we say goodnight, ESPN Radio's coverage of the Duke Mayo Bowl, which is always just so gross. Sorry, watching somebody like bathe themselves in mayo, but hopefully the football game is good. The Vegas Bowl was fun, and we are your home of the Utes, so you saw Utah beat Nebraska 44-22, and our next guest was on the call, our buddy Dave Fleming. On a Friday afternoon. Dave, Happy New Year, sir. How are you?
You will not find me bathing in mayonnaise. That will not be me.
That
will not be me.
I just can't imagine enjoying that like at all. I don't even like watching it.
No.
Like, gives me a headache.
No. And if they ask me to do it, I'll say put somebody else on the game.
There you go. There you go.
So you and I have that in common.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, let's talk about the game, and then I don't know if you've heard, there's been some coaching news regarding the University of Utah over the past couple of weeks, but the debut of Morgan Scalley, who's a friend and a friend of the show, and it's been a long time coming. So there's a lot of stuff we got to unpack here, and part of me feels bad for Morgan, and part of me is excited to see what he'll be able to do. But what was it like for you having that front row seat watching Utah handle Nebraska the way they did?
Yeah, it was a very strange week and lead up to the game, as it was for everybody involved with the program, fans, coaches, players, everybody. I mean, it was just a really unusual week. We're like you. I've known Morgan just from my side of things, calling so many Utah games over the last many years. I've known him for a long time, and he's one of my absolute favorite assistant coaches or head coaches or any coach to talk to in college football. He's very open. He tells us about his players. He's obviously a good coach. So I am excited for him. I think he's going to do a really good job. He is ready for the job. He's ready to be a head coach. I feel bad for him. I think he enjoyed his first game and he got a win and they played so well. I'm sure that it'd been chaos before and after for him. And, the transition, which was sort of supposed to be so seamless, has not exactly been that. But, you win that first game and you play as well as his team did. He sure looked the part on the sidelines and looked like everything was in working order. And I think it's kind of fun to get a dry run before the regular season opener next season, where you sort of feel how it feels to go through the prep as the head coach. So maybe in the end, that'll be a good thing for him. But yeah, I feel for now having to navigate a much different transition than it probably would have been.
Certainly, and maybe the term "feeling bad" is the wrong thing to say for a guy who now has a hell of a gig, a really great coaching job, and is making a lot of money. I'm just really curious what the reaction was from Mark Harlan, the athletic director, or Morgan Scalley, or any of the people behind the scenes that played a part in the decision that it was time to move on to Morgan, when the alert came on their phone that Kyle Whittingham has what job? Wait a second, what?
Yeah.
Because that changes the entire thing. And there's no way you could have anticipated it. I mean, Sharon Moore lost his job in spectacular fashion, like the same day Kyle stepped down. But once he took that Michigan job, Dave, it did feel inevitable that he was coming for his guys, and he took basically all of them.
He did, and you can understand why that happened. As great of a program as Utah is, and it's in terrific shape, incredible fan support, infrastructure to be a championship level team. Michigan is in a very, very small group of the most historic, most supported, most funded, biggest programs in the history of the sport. And so there are only a couple that can compete against what Michigan has to offer. And so when they throw the full weight of their program and history behind something, usually it gets done, And so, yeah, I mean, I think it was probably a feeling of helplessness. I mean, I'm sure you know the same stuff that I know, but the push to keep Jason in particular was incredible. The effort to keep him around, the financial commitment made behind the scenes to keep him around was mind blowing. The stuff that I was hearing, like, wow. And he still didn't stay. And that's just part of going up against one of the true blue blood programs. And also probably a very motivated Kyle Whittingham to say, look, I still want to coach and I can still be a championship caliber coach. And, look, I got to tread lightly here because we talked to Kyle and there was no bitterness in his voice. He didn't badmouth anybody, but I'm sure there was a part of him that thought that, hey, maybe I wasn't totally ready to be finished and you all thought I was finished and now somebody else wants me and I'm going for it. So I don't think there was a lot of sentimentality on his part once he took that extra job.
No, Dave. In fact, Gary Anderson was asked today because, as you know, the transfer portal is now officially open, and we're hearing news that several Utes are hitting the portal, namely Smith Snowden, who was second team All Big 12, and Teo Johnson, who did a great job in the defensive backfield as well. So Gary Anderson, who worked with and for Kyle for a number of years, was asked today, what would you say to people that are concerned or scared that Kyle is coming for players who played for either Utah or BYU? And Gary said, why don't you ask Utah, or you can thank Utah for pissing Kyle off. There's clearly something. And, I've known Kyle for years. He's good to come on the show multiple times every season. I don't find him to be somebody who's filled with vengeance or is out for revenge. But I don't think it's hard to connect the dots a little bit to say, okay, well, whatever happened, money people, athletic director, administrator, Morgan himself wanting the chance, whatever it was, I don't think it's too hard to believe that there's a part of Kyle that wants to do everything it possibly can to make sure that he is proving everybody wrong, because he's a competitor, as you know. I mean, the wit is certainly that.
Yes, he is, but probably above all else, that's what he is. And yeah, I don't know any more than you do. But I'm sure that is exactly what's happening. And, my guess is that as the season went on and, Kyle, I understand, he's been contemplating stepping down for a while. And, I'm sure that gets a little old on the administrative end when it's like, am I going to have to look for a new coach? Am I not? Is this guy waffling or not? So, there can be a little frustration on the other side of it. But last year, 2024 went so poorly, and then he fixed it, and he came up with this incredible solution, finding this coach, finding this quarterback, finding this system that worked so well. And I have to think that as the season was going on and looking ahead to next year, he was thinking, gosh, I want another crack at this. Like we could be really good. And, if he got pushback on that, then I can understand the disappointment. So however it went down, I think once that switch was flipped, you are right about that. Like the competitive juices kick in, there's no sentimentality. I'm going for it, and he's definitely going for it.
Yeah, he is. And to your earlier point about Morgan, and I really believe this to be true. I'm not just saying it. I feel like there's a world here because we have a lot of very upset fans right now in our market that feel betrayed. Coach Witt saying he wanted to leave Utah football in a very good place, and then suddenly he's now hiring all the coaches. Look, Kyle has a new job. He is the coach of Michigan. His task is to help Michigan win football games, compete in the Big Ten, go to the CFP. He is being paid a ton of money to do his new job. So his job now is different than what it was a couple of weeks ago. I understand why fans feel a little bit betrayed today, but it is just part of the deal. When a guy gets a head job, he wants his guys around him. But to your earlier point about Morgan, part of me wonders if he is actually a little bit excited here because now he gets to hire whoever he wants to hire. And it will be a staff built the way that he wants to build it because he was set to inherit. And look, I think they all liked each other. I don't think there was like infighting. But without Witt taking the Michigan job, I do think the coaching staff would have looked a lot like it did this year, next year, with, of course, a new defensive coordinator because Morgan's now your head coach. But what do you make of the potential of now Morgan just getting to paint his own picture on this completely blank slate?
Yeah, long term, I think it's fine. I think short term, he's going to have a big time struggle to come up with somebody as good as the guy who was there this year. That guy's good. The offense that Utah ran this year was really impressive. And I just don't know, maybe he'll surprise me. There aren't a lot of coaches like that just sitting around, though. And especially with the personnel that was in place, maybe sort of still will be in place, but we'll see. I just can't envision a world where next year it's going to be an improvement. I just can't see that. There will be a step backwards. No matter who you hire, because the fit with personnel and coach was so strong. So I think that's a big challenge for Morgan. The other thing I would say for Morgan is, as smart of a football guy as he is, there is one downside to the continuity that Utah has had, and that is, Morgan has been in one place for 3 decades, and he knows he has friends around college football. Doesn't mean he doesn't know people outside of the Utah family, but his Rolodex is not as deep as it is for some other coaches. So he's going to have some people that he can really trust and rely on if this is going to be like a nationwide search, because he hasn't bounced around like a lot of coaches and interacted with coaches from different trees and different systems, especially as a defensive guy looking for offense. That is a challenge, and that's the one downside to staying in one place for as long as he has and so many people there have. Almost all of it is good. That's the bad. And when you have to go outside and find somebody new, that will be a challenge for him. So I'm fascinated to see which direction he goes. Part of me wonders that they played so well in the Vegas Bowl, but they did throw the heck out of the ball. And, I don't know, was that all Jason deciding to do that? Was that Morgan saying, hey, let's do it a little different than maybe Kyle would have done it? Let's open things up a little bit. I'm okay with that. That part of it to me will be interesting to see what Morgan's idea of a complementary offense will be to the defense he wants to run.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And I was trying to determine during the game if that's just Nebraska selling out to stop the run. Was Jason Beck trying to give Devin Dampier some good tape to show people if he's going to transfer? I honestly don't know. Or to your point, is that a new Morgan approach? And maybe it's something that will be different around here, because a lot of people, I think, at times are a little bit frustrated with what they perceive to be, a head coach not wanting an offensive coordinator to be able to necessarily play a spread wide open passing attack style. And that's not entirely true, because Andy Ludwig had a couple of very elite years with Cameron Rising under center, and they won Pac-12 championships. But do you think we'll see, as we move into the Morgan Scalley era, do you think we're going to see a lot of what we saw under Kyle? Or do you think we will see a little bit of a new approach because there's just a different guy calling the shots now?
I mean, I think almost all defensive coaches want an offensive system that will support the defense. So I think almost all defensive coaches want an offense where there is a ball control aspect to it, where there is a physical aspect to it. So I would be shocked if Morgan wants, like a old Big 12 style, or even old BYU style, spread it out and sling it around. That would really surprise me. But it wouldn't surprise me if Morgan felt like the last few years, especially, there was too much put on his defense. It wouldn't surprise me if he thought there had been an undue pressure on that side of the ball where the offense just wasn't helping out enough, and where he would be open-minded to, like, hey, if we might have a more pro-style approach, or we might have a more up-tempo approach, because more points makes it a little easier on the other side of the ball. So that wouldn't shock me. That's where I thought this system that they fell into this year, and I fell into is probably the wrong way to put it. Like, they targeted Jason Beck. They brought him in. They brought the quarterback with him. Once Dampier got healthy and they kind of figured out, early on, I hated the way they were running the offensive line stuff early in the season. And then they just decided, you know what, we have the best offensive line in the country. Let's go smash people. And once they sort of decided that, Lord, I mean, the offense was really, really impressive. And it was ground game, ball control, and big point totals. That is a pretty good formula. If Morgan could replicate that to some degree, I would think that would be pretty attractive to him.
Dave, before I set you loose, I appreciate the time today. You know, we've had a lot of people on the show since Coach Witt stepped down and joined Michigan to get the perspective on just what a seismic move this is for him, potentially, because now you're in the Big Ten. If you compete and win Big Ten championships, and if you are able to win a national title, and if we're going to get weird, maybe a couple, you put yourself on a list of the best coaches in the sport ever, period, instead of are you the best coach in Utah history, the Western United States. It's a much different thing now for Kyle as far as the potential of what he's going to be able to do. And let's make no bones about, and this is the final thing I'll ask you, the fact that he's now in the Big Ten. And we've had a lot of people on the show basically point out, like, look, if you are not in the Big Ten or the SEC, you really are not among where you need to be to survive whatever's coming next. And people kind of refer to it as a P2 sport instead of a P4 sport. Just wanted your thoughts on that before I set you loose.
I do think there is something to that. Now, look, the Big 12's had a lot of success over the last few years. Miami in the ACC is still standing and looking pretty darn good. So I think it's probably a little too extreme to say that you have to be in one of those two conferences to be a championship type powerhouse. But I definitely think that you have a massive advantage if you're in one of those two as a program builder. And Kyle's no dummy. He knows that, and he knows it from the other side. He knows what he was up against in the last few years of trying to push for players and compete for players against those programs. I think Kyle can change. He's got huge respect, and he earned it all with the job that he's done over the last many years. But he can enter a different sort of echelon with success in Ann Arbor. And I tell you what, look, I mean, the schedule next year, I glanced at Michigan's schedule. It's just brutal. Like, they have an extraordinarily hard schedule next year. But Jay Hill on the defensive side, Jason Beck on the offensive side, Kyle Whittingham as a head coach, like, how many programs have a better threesome than that? Like, maybe zero.
Yeah.
That is a power. Jay Hill is an awesome defensive coach, and Jason Beck, I think, is an awesome offensive coach doing stuff that almost nobody else is doing. And Big Ten style, like, you can't go to Michigan and play air raid. Like, you got to have that style. That is a formula for success. I anticipate a lot of wins. Maybe not next year, but after that, I anticipate a lot of wins.
Yes, sir. Well, hopefully it works out great for Witt. We'll always love and support him on this show and this station, and very excited to see what Morgan does now that it is his time. Thanks again for your time today. Great call. I mean, you always kill it. And Happy New Year to you and yours, okay? Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. And Morgan's going to do well. He's a great fit, and I'll leave it with this. I try not to preach and tell people what to think and do. Don't be the fan base that doesn't honor what Kyle Whittingham did for that place. Like, just as an outsider, I don't live there. I didn't go there. Celebrate what that guy did for the program. He's the greatest coach Utah has ever had. Maybe will be the greatest coach they ever have. I hope everybody, after the bitterness wears off in the next couple weeks, even just can get back to that perspective. I hope.
Well said, sir. Be well. Okay. Safe travels.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thanks.
Dave Fleming from ESPN. He was on the call for Utah's win over Nebraska during the Vegas Bowl. Appreciate Dave's time today. We'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the show. We'll kind of continue. Transfer portal's open. If you're just kind of hopping in your car, getting your day started, Smith Snowden, Tao Johnson have announced that they will enter the transfer portal. We're not sure where they're going. No news on Devin. Really, no offensive players have jumped in the portal just yet, unless I've missed it. I'm doing my best to doom scroll, unfortunately, and refresh left and right. Of course, if something comes our way before we sign off at 6 o'clock, we'll bring it to you. And when we say goodnight at 6, you'll hear the Duke Mayo Bowl between Mississippi State and Wake Forest, where at the end they literally bathe in mayo. It's very disgusting. But what's not disgusting is my friends at Wasatch Wagyu, okay? So brand new client on the show, premium legit Wagyu beef New York steaks, 100% Wagyu beef burgers, as well as roast tomahawk steaks, fillets, and now they've got beef jerky. I actually just had some during the break. It's awesome. Holidays are here. Well, they're kind of behind us. But anyway, you should still check out Wasatch Wagyu, the real Wagyu beef experience. Fantastic marbling with bold, buttery flavors. So, again, beef jerky, that's what I've tried. It's really good. It's a super nice family. It's a husband and wife. They're running a small business, so we're trying to help them out. Greg and Stacy are their names. It's all about Utah. Great customer service. All the cows come from right here in Utah. And the couple, Greg and Stacy, are the ones that actually personally send out their product. So please support our friends at Wasatch Wagyu. All you got to do is go directly to wasatchwagyu.com, check out their menu, pick what you want, and they're going to send your meats to your door directly. And if you don't want to ship, they have local pickup services available in Heber. So don't wait. Treat yourself, your family, and friends, and help support local businesses. It's wasatchwagyu.com. Use the discount code DJ10 to get 10% off our good friends at Wasatch Wagyu. 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, we do have an official piece of news to report. Came down about an hour or so ago. Colton Swan has been promoted to defensive coordinator. This was widely expected. Colton actually called the defense during the second half of the Utah-Nebraska game. He joined the staff about 7 years ago, 2019. Porter, you know Coach Swan pretty well. What do you make of Utah's new DC?
Yeah, well, and you mentioned 7 years, 7 all-conference linebackers in that time span.
Nice.
You mentioned he's called in some plays. That's been expected the whole time that Scally has been the head coach in waiting. Swan's kind of been his guy. So this was one of those that we could have penciled in before it became official, and now it is. And yeah, I think a really good football coach. He's got experience under Jay Hill. He's now got experience under Kyle Whittingham, and now to work under Morgan Scally. And that guy knows how to ride a horse, Spence.
Oh, does he really?
Bulldogger over there.
I feel like if your name's Colton, there's a good shot you know how to ride a horse.
He's from out in Morgan area.
Okay.
If I'm correct. So yeah,
Love it.
I'm a big fan of Colton Swan.
Good stuff. So the transfer portal opened today. Smith Snowden, Teo Johnson, both would be big losses. And Smith, obviously, a all Big 12 performer. And Teo Johnson had a rough BYU game, but man, did that kid bounce back. But I'll be honest, not as many defections as of now, I'll say, that I was expecting to hear. But, of course, news could break over the weekend. And we'll continue to talk about Morgan Scalley and how he's going to go about his business of building his staff, defensive coordinator now in the fold. But he's got a lot of work to do. He's replacing 7 coaches that have joined Kyle in Ann Arbor, and no official news on BYU's defensive coordinator position either. I would imagine news will come quickly because the portal's open. These kids want to know who they're going to play for. All right, we'll say goodnight. College football coming up. The Duke Mayo Bowl, where 2 teams play football, and then 1 coach will bathe in mayonnaise because it's college football and it's weird. Porter, what comes our way on a Monday edition of the program?
On a Monday edition of The Drive, of course, we'll continue the college football conversation, recap the games of the weekend, some CFP stuff as well. Kyle Bonagura stops by for his weekly hit. We'll chat with Richard Smitty Smith. We'll mix up some hoops, but we'll get Smitty's read on some of the coaching stuff as well. And then Aaron Falk of the Salt Lake Tribune will stop by the program as well.
Very nice. Good stuff today. If you missed any of it, I want to say a special thank you to Chris Camerani, Guy Holliday, Roxy Bernstein, and Dave Fleming. It was wall-to-wall college football on this Friday, as you would expect. Like I said, if you missed any of it, go to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours. If you miss any of it, please check out our podcast page and become a subscriber, rate, review, say nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars. It obviously really does help. For Porter, I'm Spence saying it. I have a great weekend. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. And coming up on the other side, it's the Duke's Mayo Bowl between Wake Forest and Mississippi State. We'll talk to you on Monday.